What's going on, Tamers? It's me, Guy at a New Angle. Check it out. So today's video is going to be a little bit different than the norm. I recently been thinking about creating a sub-series of videos dedicated to helping players get into the Digimon card game as well as improve at it. And so this video is going to be aimed at looking at some of those powerful decks in the game, but more importantly some strategies around countering them. That way, as you encounter them in your games, or if you're anticipating them in an upcoming release, you'll have a leg up on what to do in key situations. So today let's take a look at ShineGreymon Burst Mode, the Royal Knights deck, as well as the Hunters deck in the BT13 setting. So now that we're at the deck cam view, the first deck we're going to take a look at is going to be ShineGreymon. Now this deck is incredibly powerful, lots of pieces released in BT13 that make it rise to prominence, but also some pieces before that in things like BT12 and before. So this deck has a fairly straight game plan that makes it incredibly scary. It's predicated off the fact that if they have just a single memory, and they have these two pieces on the board, a Rise Greymon and the Marcus Tamer, the 4-cost guy. What you can do is at the start of your turn, you can use one memory to make him a Digimon, and then he can attack your opponent's security, and then on attack, whenever he's rested, you're going to be able to Digivolve for free into ShineGreymon here from the BT13 set. This guy is going to give your Marcus Tamer plus 3000 DP and security attack plus 1, which means now he's attacking for 2 security checks at 6000. Now, you're probably thinking 6,000 is not that much, but to make matters worse, when you Digivolve into this ShineGreymon, one of your opponent's Digimon and all of their security get minus 3,000 DP for every Marcus Tamer you have. So if you've got a couple more of these guys, and this one included, everything across the board gets a blanket minus 3,000 DP, which makes his survivability much higher. That means he's checking for 2, and after that's done, you're still at 0 here. You can 4-0 Burst Digivolve into ShineGreymon Burst Mode after the attack is resolved, and that lets you pull this Marcus Tamer up as the cost for that Burst Mode being 0 cost. And then his effect, which seems almost ludicrous, lets you play a Marcus Tamer and give it Rush and make it 12,000 DP. So that Tamer you just pulled up to your hand, you play again, he can attack again, this time 12,000 DP, but he's only checking 1. However, the ShineGreymon Burst Mode lets you drop a security on your opponent's side before making the attack. So that's going to be 2 swings from the original Marcus, 1 discard from the Burst Mode, and then another from the Marcus Tamer itself. And then finally, if Burst Mode's here, he's 15,000 DP Digimon, might as well attack as well. That means that in 1 turn, for 1 memory, you've lost 5 security. This is an incredibly powerful combo. So now that we know how this deck can kill us, how can we stop that from happening? Well, I have a couple of key cards here that I think are really useful in stopping this strategy from coming to fruition. The first one here is going to be Kongo. Now this is a black option card released in BT9, and it stops all your opponent's Digimon who are cost 7 and lower from attacking, which means, and because Marcus is considered a Digimon as per his effect, and he's a 4-cost Digimon, he cannot attack, so they cannot actually do the combo, which means they have to pay for the Digivolution cost for the ShineGreymon to begin with, and then the turn would be over. Keep in mind that while this does stop them from attacking the player, the Marcus can still attack Digimon on board, so be careful what you have on board here. Another useful option that we can employ here is going to be the EX3 blue option Sorai, which source strips one of your opponent's Digimon by 4, which is fantastic actually, because the ShineGreymon inheritance effects typically DP minus stuff on your board, and so this will stop that from happening. But on top of that, it allows you to stop Digimon who don't have sources from attacking, and because Marcus Tamer typically doesn't have a source, that means he cannot attack and he cannot get his free Digivolve for the turn. So while these option cards are fantastic for stopping Marcus from attacking, sometimes you want to just remove them from the board entirely, and if you're running a Jellymon deck, there's a fantastic way to do that with the blue option card Startling Thunder. Now this is going to let you just bounce Marcus back to hand. Now that's really great because it forces him to either spend memory to Digivolve into one of their ShineGreymons, to actually just play Marcus with an effect, again costing memory, or they have to hard play Marcus again just to get him down on the board, which again costs memory, which slows them down. So Startling Thunder here is a pretty good way to really annoy your opponent and force him to spend a lot more memory to get this Marcus down and allow him to attack. And while there are some really useful cards in removing Tamers from the game, including things like Lucemon Fall Down mode, as well as the Black War Greymon card, I think probably the most useful one out there, and it's probably, you guessed it, going to be Hades Force. When in doubt, Hades out. And if you've got a board with a big Greymon named Digimon there, you can use this and just typically wipe like 2 or 3 of the Marcus Tamers right off the board. And so if you're fighting Marcus and ShineGreymon and you find yourself in a pickle, try including some of these cards in your deck to make their life a little bit more difficult. So the next deck we're going to take a look at is going to be Royal Knights. Now this is a control-oriented deck that uses the Yggdrasils in your raising area to reduce the cost of all of your Royal Knights. And the more Royal Knights you play, the more you can reduce the cost of the future Royal Knights until you get to your Omegamon. What your Omegamon does is once you play him, typically it's going to be for super reduced cost, you can throw away all of your Yggdrasils into the trash, and then you get to play all of your Royal Knights and they all gain Rush. So the idea here is to save up until you get enough Royal Knights to just make one big, finishing turn. And with each of these Knights having their own special effects, typically on play, once you get your Omegamon down, you get to play all of these Digimon and get all of their effects immediately, plus they're all just huge bodies on board. And so however strong they may be, the deck does have a few weak points that you can target and take advantage of. The first counter card we can use to stop the Royal Knights deck is our old friend for before, Sorai. Again, Sorai, although you may not source strip anything, does have the lingering effect that if your opponent doesn't have a Digimon with sources, it cannot attack. So the turn that they play their Omegamon, if they don't have any sources, all these Digimon just get their effects and then the turn is over. And so while Sorai is really good for stopping your opponents for a turn, typically once all these cards drop, your board is going to be wiped, so you're in trouble the turn after that. However, if you want to stop all these Digimon from even being dropped, another card you can use is going to be the red option card, Crimson Blaze. Now Crimson Blaze, probably one of the best red options that's ever been printed. Guys, if you don't have a couple copies of this card from BT8, do yourself a favor and grab maybe 2 or 3. Not only does this card let you delete everything that's 6,000 on your opponent's side of the board or lower, but also for every Digimon they have, it reduces this card's cost by 1. And while you're probably not going to be getting any reduction because these deck's Digimon are pretty thick, the secondary effect of forbidding your opponent from playing Digimon by effects is super powerful. Not only does it stop Omnimon or Omegamon from getting his game-winning effect off, but it also stops some of the other Royal Knights cards that lets you play Royal Knights cards alongside them to turbo and get the game plans done a bit faster. And the last card to counter the Royal Knight strategy is actually not one card, but it's 3. And that's going to be some Floodgate cards like Psychemon, the purple level 3, Solarmon, the red level 3, or Chikurimon, the black level 3. All 3 of these cards stop your opponent from reducing play costs, and that is the way that the Royal Knights deck primarily gets its Royal Knights down. Yggdrasil gives you the ability to reduce the play cost of the cards in your hand that are Royal Knights typed, and if they can't do that, then they have to pay the full cost of some of these Royal Knights cards. In this case, 14, 10, 13 from Dukemon, 11 from Jesmon, 12 from Alphamon, 13 from Craniumon, and probably the cheapest in the deck, and the one that probably not going to have the most problem with is going to be Magnamon. But again, there's only 4 copies of this guy, 8 maximum if they decide to do the other Magnamon as well, but typically like 4 to 6. So with these guys down, it significantly hampers their game plan and forces them to sometimes just skip turns. Keep in mind, Royal Knights players do have a countermeasure to this, and that is to include a couple copies of the BT13 Marcus Tamer in their decks. Probably wondering, what is ShineGreymon doing in Royal Knights? Well, even though he's 5 cost, this is a pretty decent price to pay to play this guy because he's going to give you 3 memory every turn minimum. But also, the turn that he's played, you can rest him and give one of your opponent's Digimon minus 3000 DP. And if you just happen to notice, all of these guys are 3k DP, which means they can all be taken out. And again, it's 5 cost, but it's well worth it to get 3 memory every turn and to take out a Floodgate that's stopping them. You can probably call into question, who am I really helping out here? The Royal Knights players or the counter players? I'm not really sure at this point. Alright, so the last deck we're going to take a look at was actually introduced in BT12, but still sees a lot of play in BT13, and that is going to be the Hunter's deck. Now this deck is predicated off of a pretty simple idea. First, you want to get down as many of your Tamers as possible. A lot of these guys have great effects that combo with the rest of the cards in the deck. Things like minimum 3 memory, as well as extra memory every turn, and extra card draw every turn at the start. Then once you've got down these guys, if you can play your old Clockwork Man, you've got 4 Tamers on the board, you can give one of your Digimon with save in their tech, security attack +1. Once you've got your Tamers all set, you can use their abilities to slot Digimon up under your other Digimon on board who have save in their techs as well, give them a bunch of powerful effects, and then build into an Arrestor Dramon Superior mode. Arrestor Dramon Superior mode is some of the most unique removal in the game, being able to take a Digimon and put up under one of your Tamers or one of your Digimon and then trash all the sources. But additionally, if you've got 4 cards up under him, oops, almost forgot one. There we go. If you've got 4 cards up under him, then he can attack your opponent at the end of the turn without resting, which means even if he's already rested, he can attack again anyway. So this essentially gives him 2 attacks per turn. And if you got your old Clockwork Man here, as well as 4 total Tamers on the board, you can rest this guy and then give that Arrestor Dramon Superior mode, security attack +1, which means he's checking 4 security in a single turn. Keep in mind that this deck does incorporate a lot of these save mechanics, which means that the Digimon have no problem just attacking security outright. So at this point, when their Arrestor Dramon Superior mode is out, they probably have already done enough chip damage to just win the game here. Also, something I didn't mention about these other 3 tamers before, but anytime you would Digivolve into a Digimon with save in its text, you can rest one of these guys and then move one of the cards in their sources to that Digimon and then reduce its Digivolution cost by 1, which means you get a lot of cheap Digivolves in this deck. Essentially 1 or 2 cost, if not just 0. And that, my friends, is where we're going to start our countermeasures. The first countermeasure we're going to employ is actually in the form of 2 cards. They're both floodgates that don't really see a lot of play these days, but are still very important in countering the deck here. That's going to be things like Shakomon as well as Cutemon, which prevent your opponent from reducing Digivolution costs. In the past, this was only useful against green decks, which use Digisorption to the nth degree, but now with decks like Hunter around, these cards are a little bit more useful because they can stop this as well. Now you're forcing them to pay the full cost for all of their Digimon Digivolves, and between these guys forcing full cost Digivolves and having to play Tamers, unless they cheat them out, then the speed of the deck is slowed down considerably. Another card we can use in our counter strategy against this deck is the old friend we talked about earlier today. That is going to be the black option Kongo. Something I realized not too long ago is that if you take a look at all the Digimon in this deck, there aren't that many that are actually 7 cost or over. In fact, there's only typically 2, and the first is Digimon Superior Mode. The second one, though, is one you're probably not going to see too often, but it is big old fat Quartzmon. Outside of these guys, I think most of the standard decks that I've seen for Hunters don't run anything over 7 cost, which means you're preventing like 90% of the deck from attacking whenever you play a Kongo. And again, I feel like I need to reiterate this, but keep in mind Kongo only stops them from attacking the player. They can still attack Digimon. Protect your neck, protect your board. And our last useful counter card we're going to talk about is going to be actually one of my favorites, and that is the Black-Red Megadramon from BT8. This guy is so useful. He is Tamer or low-cost Digimon Destruction. He can pop a 3-cost Digimon or Tamer whenever he's Digivolved into. And then once you Digivolve past him to level 6, as long as you've got Dragonkind or a Machine in its types, then you can do the same effect on every attack. And if you recall, the Clockwork Man needs to have 4 Tamers out on the board for him to get the Security Attack Plus effect, otherwise he's useless, which means you can start swatting some of these lower cost guys. Again, Tagiru is going to be a little bit harder to target, but the other ones are just wide open. A really useful tactic here is to see where your opponent saves most of their Digimon, and then you can use this guy to either Digivolve into and then destroy the Tamer with all those saved cards and really hamper their game plan. And so that's going to be it for today's video. Do me a favor, if you're one of those seasoned players and you think, oh, I think I know a counter that East didn't talk about, feel free to put it in the comments below. I think myself as well as some of the newer players getting into the game would really appreciate them. Additionally, if you'd like me to talk about a deck that you didn't see here today, feel free to put that in the comments below as well. I'm always taking ideas for future content. Anyway, folks, I'm going to get out of here. Before you get out of here, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.